Hi there, these comments are for LL, and I am Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com, and I'm listening to four. You did four speaking practice tests. Now, because you sent me all four in the same day, don't send me any more speaking practice until Saturday, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and grade practice test one, two, three, and four, and then we can kind of figure out where your estimated TOEFL score is right now. Okay, here's the independent speaking rubrics. I need these for question one. Here is your response.
I don't think that parents should be part of the process of choosing the kids' university because this is their life and it should be their decision. My parents really want that my brother will be a doctor, so they sent him to a big university in Italy. However, after 7 years of studying and trying to be a doctor in a real-life job, he realized that he doesn't like it. With this realization came also the frustration that he wasted so many years on studying on something that he doesn't like because of his parents. And therefore, I believe that parents shouldn't be part of this process.
Okay, so I think you need to connect what
I
you're
don't think that parents
saying.
should be part of the
You
process.
need to connect how what the example you gave, how does it relate to what you said in the beginning? Here, let's look at it one more time.
I don't think that parents should be part of the process of choosing the kids' university
So parents should not be part of the process of choosing their children's education.
because this is their life and it should be their decision.
Right. So you might want to say because it was his life and his decision, he decided that he no longer wanted to be a doctor and he pursued another academic avenue or something. So just make sure when you get into the example, you connect it, I think, more clearly back to what you said in the beginning.
My parents really want that my brother will be a doctor, so they sent.
Now you could say something like, for example, or to illustrate, and use that specific transition word to present that detail information.
Him to a big university in Italy.
I would probably say prestigious university, something like that, or a popular university. Be careful about a lot of one syllable words in your speaking or writing because one syllable words typically they indicate lower level vocabulary. So you have to be careful about that.
However, after 7 years of studying and trying to be a doctor in a real-life job, he realized that he doesn't like it.
Yeah, he realized that it was his life and he did not like doing that particular job because his parents had kind of forced him into it. So you need to connect what you're saying back to that.
With this realization came also the frustration that he wasted so many years on studying on something that he doesn't like because
So studying something he did not like. You need to use past tense there.
of his parents. And therefore, I believe that parents shouldn't be part of this process.
Good. So you could probably connect the example back a little bit better. If we look at the rubrics here, I can give you a score now. Independent speaking. I'm going to put you at about, I'm going to say 20 or 21 points on this practice test. I think that you had one or two language use issues. And you also had some smaller, not major, but some minor problems with your delivery, with maybe tone a little bit, and then also pacing. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, let me make sure I have the IBT rubrics in front of me. Okay, here's the integrated speaking rubrics right here. And you're doing, I think this is integrated task number 2. So reading, listening, speaking, it's more campus related.
Believing that electronic textbooks will reduce the students' expenses and will be effective study tools, the university decided to switch to electronic textbooks. However, the woman in the conversation who doesn't like this idea claims that the expenses will add up. If the electronic device will break down or they will come up with a new device with new features, the students will want to replace it even every year, and therefore it won't be a one-time purchase. In addition, she believes that it won't be an effective study tool as well. Since the device is too small, 8 centimeters tall, with keypad, which is hard to operate for selecting items or highlighting, it won't be an effective study tool. Besides, she preferred the old-fashioned of learning by writing and underlining because she feels more comfortable.
Okay, so let's see what we have on this one. I think you're about the same. You're kind of stuck. You have some language use and delivery issues in there that are keeping this from getting higher than what we would want. I'm going to put you again between about 2.5 and 3. I'm going to put you maybe around 21 to 22 points on this particular practice test. Now let's listen to it one more time and see if I can uncover any minor problems with language use or delivery.
Believing that electronic textbooks will...
What are you saying right there?
Believing that electronic textbooks will reduce the students' expenses and will be effective study tools, the university decided to switch to electronic textbooks. However, the woman in the conversation who doesn't like this idea claims that the expenses will add up.
Okay, let me check your language use right there.
Switch to electronic textbooks. However, the woman in the conversation who doesn't like this idea claims...
That's the problem. So the woman, you have to say the woman who doesn't like this idea claims. So in this case, you need to put that adjective clause connector in there. You create a complex sentence. That way you don't have two main verbs. You can't have more than one verb in the same sentence without some type of connector.
That the expenses will add up. If the electronic device will break down or they will come up with a new device with new...
Or who is they? Wait a minute.
Expenses will add up. If the electronic device will break down or they will come up with a new device with new...
Or authorities or officials or the company comes up with a new blah, blah, blah. Be careful about using they when it doesn't have a clear referent.
New features, the students will want to replace it even every year, and therefore it won't be a one-time purchase.
Yeah, it won't. Therefore, it won't be a one-time purchase. I would be careful. I'm going to advise you to not use contractions because sometimes I misunderstand what you're saying. So if you say it will not be instead of won't, it's easier to understand that. But if you do the contractions, you really have to have really good pronunciation and very good sentence rhythm in order to use contractions. So right now, I don't think your pronunciation is high enough to use contractions in the sense that your intelligibility remains high while you're using those contractions.
In addition, she believes that it won't be an effective study tool as well.
So in addition, she believes that it won't be an effective study tool as well. So put a little bit more stress on that word won't.
Since the device is too small, 8 centimeters tall, with keypad, which is hard to operate for...
Since the device is too small at 8 centimeters, blah, blah, blah. So you could probably, it was a little awkward how you indicated the dimensions or the parameters of the device, how big it was. It was awkward how you tried to combine that with the previous sentence.
Selecting items or highlighting, it won't be an effective study tool. Besides, she preferred the old-fashioned of learning by writing and underlining because she feels more comfortable.
All right, so I think that my score is pretty accurate. I said 21 to 22 points out of 30, so I think that is pretty good. So I think sometimes your delivery is not entirely clear and you sometimes have language use issues. Be careful about the complex sentence, right? Go into the grammar part of my online course. I want you to study the lesson titled Adjective Clauses. So then you know how to form them. You have the who plus the verb, and then you have the main verb after that. That's where you're not quite getting your grammar right. Let's listen to your integrated task number 3. So this is reading, listening, speaking, academic.
According to the reading, swarm intelligence is a complex group behavior, and the professor gives the example of a colony of ants that demonstrates a swarm intelligence while they're searching their food resources.
Are you saying swarm, swarm intelligence? I think that's what you're saying.
When they're facing an obstacle to reach another branch in the tree to get their food, and there is a white space between the branch, they will form a bridge by
Now, what is they? What does they refer to? Right? You're talking about ants. I would mention ants, and then after that, maybe ants use insects, and then after use insects, maybe use they. So you want to show that you have good vocabulary. So once you refer back to a noun that's already mentioned, maybe use a synonym of that noun first, right? And then eventually you can use a pronoun, but don't immediately go to the pronoun because that does not show good vocabulary.
connecting hands to each other. This bridge will allow them to cross from one bridge to another to get their food. However, this bridge cannot be done with one individual ant.
You want to say individual. You're having a little bit of trouble with that word, individual.
And therefore, this behavior is a complex group behavior called swarm intelligence.
It's called swarm intelligence because it involves a multitude of insects together in order to make decisions or to accomplish things or something. So you could probably tie that last part, I think, back to the other part of your response. Let me listen to the whole thing without any comments. I'll give you a score.
According to the reading, swarm intelligence is a complex group behavior. And the professor gives the example of a colony of ants that demonstrates a swarm intelligence while they're searching their food resources. When they're facing an obstacle to reach another branch in the tree to get their food, and there is a white space between the branch, they will form a bridge by connecting hands to each other. This bridge will allow them to cross from one bridge to another to get their food. However, this bridge cannot be done with one individual ant. And therefore, this behavior is a complex group behavior called swarm intelligence.
Okay, I think this is a little bit better, I think, with your... I didn't notice any major problems with language use. Your delivery is not perfect, but I think it's pretty good, and you had a nice organization of ideas. I'm going to put you at 23 to 24 points on this particular practice test. Okay, now we're listening to your integrated speaking task number 4, listening, speaking, academic. This is a tough one because it involves listening. So you have to listen and you have to be completely accurate in the response that you do and make sure you're not leaving out any important information.
The speaker explains on 2 developments that allowed ancient Roman cities to expand compared to other cities in the ancient world.
You want to say ancient, the ancient world, ancient. You're having a little bit of trouble with that CH sound.
One development was the concrete, which was a very strong building material. With this material, they can build strong structure in the ancient world. One development...
The ancient world. So I think sometimes it's that medial R sound. When the R is in the middle of the word, like swarm, you say more swam instead of swarm. Or instead of world, you say world. So you have to be careful about that medial R sound. If you go to the pronunciation part of my course, you can practice that lesson. It's the R, the L, and the flap. You'll find it. I forgot what number it is, but I do have a good lesson to help you with the R. And when you do that lesson, focus on the R when it's in the middle of the word. That's where you want to do your practice.
Was the concrete, which was a very strong building material.
How about concrete, comma, a very strong building material instead of which is a very strong building material. So use the appositive there to show that you have more advanced grammar.
With this material, they can build strong structures such as bridges. Having a bridge over a wide river allowed them to
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about things in the past tense, right? Let me go back and check your verbs here.
concrete, which was a very strong building material.
Which
With
was?
this material, they can build strong structures such
This is material. They could build strong structures. So could kind of is like the past tense of can.
as bridges. Having a bridge over a wide river allowed them to expand because they can transfer from one side to another.
Because they could. So your modals, you're having trouble using your modals, especially when you're talking about past tense actions. So I'll say may versus might, can versus could. So be careful there. You have will versus would. So you have the kind of like the future versus the past tense versions of those words.
With wagon or cars. In addition, having aqueducts, which was another development of the Roman cities.
How about having aqueducts or constructing aqueducts, comma, another development in Roman cities? Again, go for the appositive there instead of the adjective clause. It's a little bit more concise and it shows advanced grammar.
Allow them to transfer a clear fresh water in a high volume to a long distance from the mountains to the villages. Having water resources allowed them to have a new locations
Having water resources allowed them. I like how you're using gerund.
besides near
You're
rivers.
using a lot of gerund phrases, which is good, but you might be overusing that particular grammar structure. You don't want to seem like you only can do a certain type of thing all the time. You want to show you have a good range of both vocabulary and grammar, and I think you might be a little bit limited with your grammar by how you're framing the sentences here.
The speaker
Okay, let me listen to the whole thing one more time and then I'll give you a
explains
score.
on two developments that allowed ancient Roman cities to expand compared to other cities in the ancient world. One development was the concrete, which was a very strong building material. With this material, they can build strong structures such as bridges. Having a bridge over a wide river allowed them to expand because they can transfer from one side to another with wagon or cars. In addition, having aqueducts, which was another development of the Roman cities, allowed them to transfer a clear fresh water in a high volume to a long distance from the mountains to the villages. Having water resources allowed them to have a new locations besides near rivers. The speaker explains on two developments that allowed ancient Roman cities to
Okay, got it. Okay, so I was kind of looking at the rubrics the second time as I listened to yours, and I think you did pretty well with your delivery. You could probably work a little bit more. There were some pronunciation problems like that R sound that I was telling you about. I think your tone, you're getting better, varying your tone, which is good. You definitely had some problems talking about past tense actions using modal verbs or modal auxiliary verbs, if you will. So you can probably improve that a little bit. Your grammar, I think, is a little bit limited in those ways. So you're trying to advance your grammar structures, but you're somewhat limited. and you cannot get everything correct, right? And you sometimes get confined by certain types of structures. Like in this case, having, using a certain type of grammatical structure may be a little too much. So be careful about that. I'm thinking your score, I'm going to put 3, so 23 points on this. Okay, so based on what I'm looking at here, I took down my notes here. Speaking task 1, you got 20. Speaking task 2, 21. Speaking task 3, 23. Speaking task 4 is 23. So you're probably looking right now between about 21 and 22 points out of 30. That would be my guess for your overall score right now. You must control your language use better if you want to score higher, and you need to improve a little bit more with your delivery. Now, with topic development, with the integrated task, maybe one thing you can do is use more voice markers as you acknowledge the information coming from the reading and the listening passages. I think that would be a good thing to do. Okay, now if you want to learn how to do that more, go to Google. I have a lesson for you. Go to Google, type in the words TOEFL Integrated Speaking Strategies. Find that link at Better TOEFL Scores, right? I have about a 10,000 word lesson that goes over the structure of how to organize task number 2, 3, and 4, including putting the voice markers in there. I think that's something that you can work on also. Alrighty, and thank you for doing that. So now you have a pretty good idea where you are right now with your speaking. So if you're trying to get 26, right, do not register for the TOEFL exam yet. You're not ready. Now, once you're consistently scoring between, say, 26 and 28 points from my feedback, then it's time to register. But right now, you're not there yet. All right, thank you for doing this practice test.